Right, so a warm welcome to everybody that's joining us on the Influencer Marketing Roundtable today. As I said, this is something that we do every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. A little bit about me for those of you that don't know who I am. I'm a podcast host, like some of them on the group today, which is called Influence the Global Podcast. Now in our fourth season, so we interview everybody from influencers, content creators, agencies, brands, thought leaders, all sorts of people. And you can listen to that on the various podcast networks. I'm also the author of Influencer Marketing Strategy, which was launched in March this year. And I'm recently a main contributor on influencer marketing for the Evening Standard. I also speak at events and I host lots of panels. I'm also the founder of the Influence division of the Branded Content Marketing Association, founder of Membership World, which is my own brand, and also a co-founder of MESA, which is the Meetings and Event Support Association. But you can also work with me on a one-to-one basis. I have my own program, which I'm hoping you can just see here, which effectively is large. I'm not going to go through this in a lot of detail, but it's all about helping individuals become more influential. If anybody's interested in having a chat with me after this, then obviously please do. Happy to have a conversation with you about building your own influence. Right, so what to pay influencers or charge. So I thought before we go on to talk about this, it's important to think about the process before you do that. And forgive me for those of you that do know all about this. I'm largely just giving some insights for the people that don't know. So the first thing is to make sure that you do the research properly. Influencer programs work best when there's an ideal content match, that the values are totally aligned. So what you don't want to be doing is paying for an influencer who's perhaps got followers, a large percentage of the followers outside of your target audience. And that's one of the benefits of working with influencer programs, influencer agencies that can actually do a lot of this work for you. In fact, I had an instance recently where a restaurant brand was looking at working with a big influencer, but actually without knowing that a big percentage of that person's follower base was actually based in the United States. So the relevance and what they were paying for was way less than they thought. So it's about really making sure that you do your due diligence. You obviously want to make sure that you decide on the compensation method and when payment is going to be made, although not always do influencers get paid. I'm sure everybody will have a view about that. But certainly professional influencers would see payment as a key part of their work. You obviously want to consider the reach of the influencer, but on the relevant different types of platforms. People that are particularly big on Instagram may not necessarily be on LinkedIn and Twitter. So you need to think about where your target audience is best placed and where you think those individuals are going to be. Now, just let's look at Instagram for a moment. If you were looking at somebody and looking at their follower base, you may not have, as I said a moment ago, you may not know a lot of information about their audience are based, their gender mix of their followers, all sorts of different things. So what you can do here is ask them for their media deck. And when they send that to you, they'll have a lot of that information on them, the type of brands that they've worked with before, the type of engagement that they've worked on, and that will give you a really good insight as to whether or not you really want to work with them or not. It's obviously very important to understand before you think about what sort of payment method is the frequency of the posts, the stories, the videos. And that's just on a B2C basis. It might well be that you're creating a research paper. It could be all sorts of different things. And those are the sorts of things which you need to be talking about and discussing. How long is the length of partnership? Is it going to be a one-off campaign or is it going to be a longer term? There's a lot of research suggests now that long-term ambassador programs tend to work best because their follower base are used to seeing their brand represented by their favorite influencer or more regularly. Freebies and perks. Well, sometimes it's worth mentioning that, if you're looking at working with an influencer, what's the most important thing to them? It isn't always money, by the way. It can be exclusive access to an event where they can create some unique content that will bring in more followers for them. It could be that you are going to give them a discount give a discount for their followers to attend an event. It could be that there's some prizes or competitions that you want to run with them. All of those things can play a big part in the negotiation process. You also need to be aware that don't just assume that you are going to have a piece of content that you can use on all of your social media platforms, on your websites, without having agreed that. And that's a real big challenge, is the rights issues, and I'm sure we'll have some conversation, debate around that afterwards. And also about understanding the campaign deliverables. It might well be that you want to run some affiliate links with some of the individuals, so that's worth considering as well. I'm just going to flip through the various platforms here, and I've put these rates in dollars because so often we have audiences from all around the world here. We tend to, within the industry, grade influencers by different follower numbers. And a nano influencer is typically somebody from 1,000 to 10,000 followers, a micro between 10 and 50,000, mid-tier 50 to 500,000, macro 500 to a million, and mega a million afterwards. There is some differences of opinion. They're not sort of industry stamped, but these are just sort of guidelines here. As you can see, even on the left-hand side, there's quite some vary. Instagram is by far the biggest platform for influencer marketing. But it's important to remember that engagement matters more than anything else. This is another reason why it's really important to do your due diligence. What you don't want is somebody that has a high follower base and a very, very low level of engagement. Although I mentioned Kim Kardashian here with 177 million followers, you're going to get the bigger followers, the bigger numbers, you're going to get a lower engagement rate, but of course it's still quite substantial. On YouTube, I think it's worth mentioning here, they do tend to be more expensive, and that's largely because it takes a lot longer to create YouTube content, and particularly if they've got to go out on locations and film this, and it might well be that it's part of a series as well, so bear that in mind as well. And you've got different rates that you can see here. TikTok has been hugely successful in the last 2 years or so, and it has phenomenal levels of views. In fact, if you want your brand to sort of blow up very quickly, TikTok is definitely a great vehicle for you to consider this. Lots of stunts and competitions and campaigns that have worked really, really well on TikTok. Even the government used influencers that were promoting, washing hands safely on TikTok. On Twitter as well, tends to be a much lower cost than the other platforms. It's largely all about conversation here, and what you really want is individuals to be echoing your brand message through thought leadership content, but just gives you a bit more of an idea as to what to charge on Twitter. On Facebook, similar, can be very successful on Facebook. It just really, the great thing is the measurability on Facebook is very, very strong. It's got a very, very wide audience as well. It's still one of the biggest networks. So different rates there again. I wanted to sort of finish lastly by talking about the sort of B2B space. Now, there's a couple of platforms that I work with. One is called Thinkers 360 and the other is called Analytica. And this is an example of different rates that I charge actually for services that I provide. One of the reports that I did this year with Analytica was the Social CEO Index report. And I worked with Synergy, which was a print management company, and Analytica, and we sent this out to over 300 CEOs of trade bodies and professional membership bodies, which are also a target customer for me. So this was a great vehicle. Now, obviously, I wasn't paid to do this, but what I didn't do is I didn't pay for the services of Analytica, and I didn't pay for the print and the design with Synergy. So it was an example where 3 people got value out of that piece of content. And of course, subsequently, some of the people I've been speaking to have now gone on to use me for consulting services. So anyway, that's a little bit of an overview. If you want more information on the Influencer Marketing Secrets Facebook group, you feel free to jump onto that and go and have a look at it. We'll share this video in that session afterwards, but now really want to just have a wider discussion with everybody. So I'm going to stop sharing. Hopefully that was of interest. John, do you want to just start off with what's your perspective on influencer pay?
Right. Okay, where to start with this?
Right.
Discussing influencer pay is without doubt the poison chalice within the marketing industry, because nobody knows what to charge. And I'll be quite frank, it is a cyclical thing, and as an influencer, you have got to be flexible. Basically, you will find, as you draw towards the end of the financial year, say, a lot of people are trying to ask you to work for free, okay, because budgets have dried up and that type of thing. What I would say is, for me, if I am producing a blog post or an Instagram post, if it's a paid for Instagram post, they're sort of comparable, actually. And I've got to shoot I'm talking a basic thing here. So basic photograph, say 300 to 500 words of text. And I'm then, I may be primarily putting it on my blog or on Instagram, but I may also share it, say, on LinkedIn, Facebook, do several tweets and so on to promote it. That is at least, and I stress this, at least 5 hours work. Okay. So that just gives you some idea. A lot of influencers, actually, especially the more amateur ones, do tend to think they should be paid on a kind of hourly basis. Okay. If you're hiring an influencer such as myself, and I think I do, I think I can say this without sounding arrogant, or hopefully can. You are hiring someone who has basically appeared on every daytime TV news show going, pretty much every discussion radio show. So Newsnight, Today programme, Channel 4 News, BBC News. So I know there's an international audience here, so I have done a number of international as well. So if you hire me, you do also get someone who is a accomplished and experienced media performer. So that has to come with a premium. What I would say is it's very interesting seeing the comparison for the nano, micro, mid-tier and so on influencers. I think the thing I would say to you is be very wary. Obviously, follower count does matter, but it is only one aspect.
Absolutely.
And Gordon made a very good point there. You can hire Kim Kardashian, fine, but the engagement is going to be much less. Not only much less, but I know full well Instagram is not my biggest platform, but if I post on it and people are engaging with it, it's not an emoji or one word or, hey, great bruh. It's a paragraph, it's several paragraphs, it's people sharing their story. There's a quality engagement, and that is definitely worth paying for. Freebies and perks. Gordon, you're a very naughty boy. Those are words I would not have used.
What, freebies and perks?
Yeah, I perks maybe, but yes, okay, I will occasionally do posts strategically that fit me in return for product or service placement, but I actually desperately try not to. Because, to be perfectly frank, this is my main source of income. I have got to buy school uniform. I've got to pay all the bills that everyone else has to pay. So, you know, it does depend. But and also, if you are looking for, I mean, myself, I actually have an agent, so an agent will negotiate on my behalf. Not all influencers well. I suppose the other thing is, if I'm talking from a UK perspective, and we haven't got onto this yet, but you do want to try and hire someone and pay for someone who will adhere to the advertising standards authority guidelines. Because if you don't, if you've got someone who isn't going, if you're not familiar with those guidelines, message me. We can maybe catch up on that later. But they've got the potential to drag your brand through the mud. So again, that's something else worth paying for. Everyone here is going to probably want to go, yeah, but how much should I actually pay? You are going to struggle to get me out of bed to do, say, the most basic tweet, to be perfectly frank, for less than 100 quid. I generally work myself on providing a full package whereby I will provide you with a blog post, an Instagram post, maybe an Instagram reel or two or story, a handful of tweets. So I try and cover, you know, all my social media channels, all the ones that best suit you, for a fee. And I do brand ambassadorships as well. If you're talking brand ambassadorships, rarely does that type of thing work for less. You're generally talking sort of thousands for that type of thing. It doesn't have to be big thousands, but you are generally talking 3 zeros. Gordon, I feel I've said enough.
Yeah, no, you have. Priscilla, can you stop sharing your screen?
Okay, how do I do
Nice to see you. It's all right. I just don't know why that's happening.
If you go to the Zoom button on your toolbar, go back to Zoom.
Oh dear.
Because I normally give everybody, yeah.
Don't exit that. Go click on meeting controls. So go back to that Zoom button.
Yes.
Click on your meeting controls to the right.
Yeah.
No, don't click the X. Just click on the. Don't click the X. Yeah, click on the. Don't click the X. Don't click the X. Click on the tab. The meeting controls. Click on it.
Yeah, I did. That's it.
Oh, it should open.
Right. Okay.
The screen from there.
Yeah.
It might be sitting behind the window. You might need to minimize the window that you're on.
You carry on. I'll fumble around.
Maybe you can leave the meeting and then.
Yeah, leave the meeting. Yeah, if you can leave the meeting, Priscilla.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, sorry, guys. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, John. Really helpful. Yenin, I was keen to hear from you because you're also a content creator, but obviously work in the space. What's your thoughts around influencer pay?
So my perspective be definitely from my past many years working in the agency environment, which I would also kind of want to talk about from brand's perspective. So I worked in media agency and now PR, and they are a completely different world, you know. So from a media agency perspective, when it comes to working with the influencers, now often the challenge there is when it comes to pay and also, you know, trying to justify ROIs, often the media plan, we call it, you know, get to put on the next to a social media plan on the next to a display or affiliate advertising. So often clients and, you know, brands comparing influencers payment or ROIs with other digital channels. You know, they look at click-through rate, they look at you know, conversion rates or impressions. So often that comparison is within the digital industry. So
She's doing it again. Sorry. Right. I don't know what's going on. Priscilla, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
This is really weird, isn't it?
I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, so often the payment when we have to look at is no longer just about pay per post anymore. A lot of time we have to put influencer payment as something like translated into a media language, like a CPM, or basically cost per impression,
Of course.
and CPE, and sometimes even CPA, cost per acquisition, is how many influencers you work with, be able to how their content can be able to convert or direct basically a transactional kind of a sales model. So that means it's often really hard to negotiate the rate with influencers, because often, you could also consider the time and effort they spend creating the content, which, the brands would understand. But at the same time, if they charge, if they create a video which requires high production value, which requires, like an additional member of their assistant to create like a high quality, a film video, for example, that gives, a CPM equivalent of something like £70, which comparing to some standard like affiliate or like a display or social, which is around £7-10, and then the client will say, like, how come this is very very high? So there's a lot of education needed on both sides, I suppose, to the brands, educating on this is not a media buy. This is simply working with a creator who's got ideas, and from a kind of a creativity perspective, but also from an influencer perspective, how we manage their expectation of the payment, because often they see that the budget's coming from media nowadays. The line is very blurry, whether that sits with media or PR or creative or social. So I suppose the influencers also need to have a flexibility, back to John's point on being flexible around how they're being paid or being compensated, and then sometimes even being challenged. But now I'm on the PR side, which I've seen a different type of like a influencer collaboration, which very much around bring them to an event, a value exchange. So that's very different from media, which is more kind of a transactional. So on this part, I suppose there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration in terms of more than just a pay per post, but it's very much around bring the creativity and also their time of attending event, and something they can gain from the partnership, and how we're able to maximize that value for both parties, and to make it more like a long-term ambassador program, other than just like a per like pay per cost model, and something that we are really keen to drive in, I suppose, in both PR and media, and just general like industry, and how we want to make it more like a partnership and more collaboration. So I suppose from a payment perspective, that will be more I suppose will provide more value to the influencers in terms of a long-term brand a partnership. So it's not just about, oh, this is how much we pay you for this particular post, but it's more thinking of long-term.
No, really good point there. And if you look at brands like Gymshark and ASOS, they've built their entire business, haven't they, around influencer strategy. And I guess in the early part of that, they wouldn't necessarily have paid for those fitness individuals, but they know that what's happened as a result of that is those individuals have become icons in their own right, very, very successfully. So that's really, really good to hear your perspective. Aaron, what's your thoughts around sort of longer term ambassadors and paying for, well, just broadly, give me your perspective on what we've been talking about, because I'm sure you've got some views.
I mean, as always, have so many thoughts, and lots of Yenen's opinions. I think the most important point to make, very similarly to John, is that the industry's moved on. Like, we need to pay people. None of us in this room would come and work for free, and we have to take that approach with influencers too.
Absolutely.
I think a few of the things that we need to think about that we haven't mentioned so far is the authority of the person that you're working with, which is unfortunately very hard to put your finger on the pulse. But what I will say, as an example, is that a dermatologist with 50,000 followers, I would expect to pay more than a beauty influencer with 500,000 followers. because the dermatologist is bringing credibility, a huge range of knowledge, and they in themselves technically may be more influential because they will likely be influencing the influencers. I think another thing to think about is, and similarly to what Yenon was saying, is what are we trying to do with this person? What are we trying to achieve? So obviously the industry often speaks about engagement, and I think that sometimes can be short-sighted, because you need to also think about the quality of the engagement, and then all of that's very hard to track and measure.
Indeed.
Whereas if we look at something like impressions, and if we use that Kim Kardashian impression, I think what's very interesting is you may pay Kim Kardashian 500K for a post. I paid her more before, but exponentially, she is much cheaper than someone who has 100,000 followers or 10,000 followers, because of the amount of impressions she drives. So yes, you may not necessarily use that person to create a conversation. You may use that person to get your message out there. It's understanding who are the kind of people that I need to work with to do the different things that I need to do. Because that's generally where people get burned. People will try and put their money to, I don't know, for talking sake, someone with 500,000 followers thinking they're going to do X job. And then when they don't deliver on that, probably because they're the wrong person, then we're like, oh my God, influencer marketing doesn't work.
Yeah. And that's the problem, isn't it, Aaron? Because, you know, we often talk about 11 times greater ROI than many other forms of media. But I will always caveat that by saying, you know, when done well, when you've really done your insight, when you've done your research, and that's the reason why brands that are working with influencer platforms, working with credible agencies and individuals that really know their stuff can get a far better return, because those we do this all of the time, and it's a shame, because there's tons and tons of companies out there that want to invest in influencer marketing but just don't know how to, or are afraid of it, or concerned about next to doing that. Alison, I can see you've just joined us, and lovely to see you here. Tell us about what you do. And the point that I've just made is quite a credible one, actually, because we've had this discussion on Messenger, haven't it? Somebody that actually wants to do influencer marketing, but not sure. So tell us a little bit about what you do to start with, and then perhaps why there's some hesitancy.
Hello, Gordon. Sorry for coming so late. Look forward to watching the replay and catching up. But it was really interesting just catching the end of Aaron there and hearing what you said, because we're exactly that. You know, I've kind of thought influence marketing would be great for us. We do personalized children's books, and they're a really emotive, lovely product. They're really good quality. I mean, they would be great for I look at people like Stacey Solomon and think, oh my God, you know, she would love them. She would love them. But how do I get them to her or whatever? So, because they're just beautiful, positive stories. But I think, you know, every time I've dabbled with it, we've just not had the return. We don't have a huge income to invest. Although having said that, if we knew we were going to get 11 times back, then we would happily stump up some cash. But I think it's just not knowing how to get the return and just not having the confidence in it to sort of put that money in the first place. And having had a few, you know, episodes of even just sending out free books and not seeing any return on it whatsoever is, you know, just kind of, so it's the uncertainty of it really, and how do you track it and how do you follow it up is what's holding me back really from engaging with it more fully.
Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna have a successful campaign at some stage soon. It's just this. I mean, I share all of the experts on here's view about education. It really is so important for us to be seen to be educating and helping people, and that's one of the reasons why I run this sort of weekly group. And it's really lovely. So we've got quite a few people on here that are experts. Don't always have, but it's really nice to get your perspective on this. Another one, Elliot. What's your views around influencer pay? Oh, sorry, you're on mute, buddy.
Yeah, hi. I really don't know too much about it, if I'm honest. You know, I'm interested to see how it's kind of structured. You know, I feel that from a very basic level, if you're willing to invest in it, you do want a return, and you want to be able to measure that return. You know, like any digital marketer would want to see that. So it's just interesting seeing, you know, it's interesting to find the right person for your brand or whatever you're trying.
And that's the most important thing. That is singly the biggest challenge that the whole industry faces, is finding the right influencer. And one of the things that, just to add to that, I think makes a massive difference is when you've found some of these people that might be on a short-term campaign, you know, stick with them, hold with them, because those could be real great ambassadors for your brand. And I mentioned Gymshark and ASOS because they've built multi-billion-pound brands as a result of this, and not everybody can work with celebrities. I mean, I'm running a competition actually with Nottingham Trent University with 450 marketing students, and we've got 20 brands involved in this project at the moment. And it's what they're going to get as a result of this is effectively a free influencer marketing strategy. And I'm really excited to see the final results of this, because the brands, and many of these brands will be, you know, not too dissimilar to Alison's. You know, they're sort of startup, medium. They're not necessarily massive companies, not with huge group. But if we can prove something working on a very small level, I think it really does help. You know, many more people understand the value of what influencer marketing is really all about. So anybody else got any questions? Because I'm sort of asking people. I'm quite happy to answer any questions from the people that perhaps don't know too much about influencer marketing, given that we've got a number of experts here. I can't all be shy. I mean, the other thing I was going to say to you guys is that, I mean, you know, we haven't talked about influencer brief, we haven't talked about influencer contract. Those are things that we have talked about on previous sessions, but there's a whole lot more to influencer marketing just than the payment process, and finding and researching influencers is a very, very big part of that process. Yeah, so Shelley, you've got a question.
Yeah, I suppose for me, my background is that I've always built my business on word of mouth, really. And in the early days, I did a lot of media, which paid off. And I got very slack about that. And also, with the media comes an awful lot of rubbish that you have to deal with, as well as the good stuff. And so for me, it's that balance. I had sympathy with the see the lady's name who spoke about the books. You know, we've got a good product, and you know, how do we move forward? And I've always been very niche, so it's never really been a problem to actually get the work that I've needed. But in order to expand it, I need a different mindset. So any thoughts on that would be appreciated.
Anybody like to jump in to help Shelley there at all with any sort of views, thoughts?
Well, the bad news is I don't think these days it's about having a good product necessarily. It's about getting the product in front of people, right? Yeah. I think the good news is that, you know, influencer by its very nature is word of mouth marketing, right? So you actually know what you're doing. It's just one of the things that I say to people is, we use this phrase influencer and it scares people because it feels new and it's something different, but it's not. Influencer marketing's been around for like 100+ years. Like journalists that was the old influencer marketing. The new influencer marketing is just a shift in the medium. So it's gone digital. I would say you just need to think about where you're doing your work and which platform. As a product becomes more niche, it's more important to find what that platform is. And I mean, I don't know much about your business, but sounds like LinkedIn's probably the one, but it could also be podcasts. It could be thinking about what we can do on YouTube, because that really is the home of long form content. I think about it as an influencer driven TV channel. Clubhouse, maybe. I've gone off Clubhouse. So I think it's had its moment.
Oh, totally. Is anybody on Clubhouse still?
And Twitter, like, let's not forget Twitter. Like, it doesn't drive the best engagement in any way, shape, or form, but it is good for driving impressions, and it does have those built-in communities that are quite easy to access.
Yeah, no, thank you, Aaron. That's really helpful. James, I think, did you want? Were you wanting to ask something?
Sorry, yeah, I was just I'm sort of new to the whole influencer. What is the best way to actually approach an influencer?
Well, that's a really good question, actually, and I'm sure we've got some others' views on that. But I have this process called jab, jab, punch approach. Not literally, but effectively, you wouldn't go into a conference and just go up to somebody and just present the business card straight away and say, "Oh, hi, I want to do business with you." You would try and use it as a way of building up a relationship. So what I would be trying to do is to comment, having a look at the ideal type of influencers that you think resonate with you best, like and comment a few times, and then send out a direct message, because by that time they will have perhaps seen some of your comments that are relevant, and that you are recognizing what that individual's doing. You know what, influencers want to be recognized. If you can build an engaged audience, that is a huge talent, quite frankly, and shouldn't be underestimated. You would go and pay money for a TV advert, for a radio advert, wouldn't you? Why would you not pay a proportion? And the other thing I would say is that some of these individuals, and I'm sure we've got some here, are multi-talented. They don't just build audiences. They're photographers, they're videographers, they're location scouts. They know their numbers inside out. And quite honestly, a lot of them are great negotiators. 80% of influencers are also female. Particularly when you look at Instagram. So we've seen a huge growth in entrepreneurialism, and some of these individuals, by the way, are not just promoting it and advocating other people's brands. They're now creating their own brands, and brands are also realizing that they could create their own line for that influencer, which has been hugely successful as well. So my approach, James, is to use a really nice crafted message based upon recognition to start with, and having followed that person up. 65 to 70%, it may even be higher, of influencers ignore inbound emails and direct messages. And why do they?
A lot of it is gone through the likes of Messenger and DMs now, hasn't it?
Well, that's true, but even so, a lot of them ignore that because for the reasons I've just said, that there's no attempt getting that, pricking the conscience, pricking the interest of that influencer. And don't forget, you're not the only one that's trying to do this. If you can imagine somebody that's got 200,000 or 300,000 followers, they're going to be bombarded with stuff. So I was just conscious. Kate, I know, is keen to have a question, and I know that who else wanted to ask something? Kate, do you want to just fire your question over?
So mine is not necessarily connected with the approaching or pricing of an influencer. It's because I don't really know much about it. One of the concerns our clients have had when influencer has come up in discussion, I think sometimes consumers, when they see an influencer promoting a certain product, they feel like there's this kind of, oh, this person's been paid to sell me this product. I can see above that. I'm a smarter consumer than that. I'm not going to buy that product just because someone's paid to have it advertised. That's just those sneaky corporates trying to get products in front of me. So one of the concerns, or something I've really struggled to think about, is how do we make a campaign with an influencer sound, not just sound, but be kind of genuine? I know that in some way, when you pick the influencer that you're going to work with and having the right kind of client base, but I don't know about the things like, for example, the phrasing. How do we make it so that the product is something that they genuinely believe in and it's above just being a business deal?
Well, I mean, and I'll reach out to some of the others in a minute, but I mean, that's a very good question. I think the most important thing is you're not overly prescriptive in what you're asking the influencer to do, so that you are giving them some guidelines as to what that might look like, and what you're being very crystal clear about the objective. The most important thing for an influencer is their audience, because actually if the campaign doesn't work for you, guess what? It doesn't work for them either. So what they want to do, in many instances, not all, but in many instances, you want an influencer that would have gone on and bought that product off their own merit, because they are genuinely interested. So it's about trying to find, and that's the reason why we use the word collaboration all the time, because that's exactly what it is. Anybody like to add to what I've said there?
Hi, Gordon. Can I answer that? So sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
I just got another meeting, so I'm heading to town. So excuse the noise, and it's probably the last time that I'll be able to chat at the meeting. But I thought that was a really awesome question, and that's one of the things that we support on, because our consultancy is all about storytelling, and we do find when a client has a story or engaging narrative around a product, you can actually help their creative create a story around that. So rather than launching it, for example, we worked with a beauty brand, and rather than just seeding out lipsticks, for example, we helped create a narrative around them. That brand by nature is all about empowering women. They're all about championing diversity. So we included those messages in the storytelling, because then when those influencers then create content around that product, they're then able to share those key messages. They're able to then create a story and just heighten the experience for the consumers. So I always recommend, don't just say, oh, hi, we want you to help promote X, Y, Z. Sorry, massive truck behind me. So just create a really engaging narrative or story around a product that can help creatives create around.
Yeah, no, thank you, Shannon. That's really helpful. Guys, we've reached the end of our time. John, I know you had a question. Was it a very quick one, buddy?
I was just going to reply to Kate. I was just going to say, what you want to do is you want to get the... you might go to the influencer with a brief, but you actually want to go with them and say, what do you think of this brief? Because the influencer knows what works for their audience. That will help produce the genuine content that will look genuine, will appear genuine, should be genuine, that will engage with your client and their audience as well. So it's not just a case of saying, right, this is what I want you to do. It's a case of, what do you think of this?
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. Sorry, I meant John Lambert.
Sorry.
That's fine. It's my problem. It's my problem. It's when you've got more than one John. Super quick then, John, where are you? What was your question?
Not to worry, because it will lead into a discussion, I'm sure. So.
Oh, okay. Another time. All right, guys. Look, so thank you so much for taking the time out this morning. Really good. And I'll post the recording in the Influencer Marketing Secrets Facebook group. And have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
Gordon.
Bye.
Charlotte, we'll regroup. I'll shut this down. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.